solve this problem. And I'm thinking you can't hear us properly, Robin.
No,
No, we can't.
unfortunately.
So I think, unfortunately, we are going to have to leave the stream today. We literally have no way ourselves sorting things out. I'm going to put something in the chat.
Is it worth me restarting from this end just in case?
Yes, give it a go.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I will put the video on Relax with Awa.
We are today another day and if and now I want you to let you on holiday. Anywhere in the world, it can be Italy, it can be France, it can be New York, it can be anywhere you like. And the lockdown is over. There's nothing to worry about. You are with your family and your friends, and you're having a good time. That everything is back to normal. Everything is good. You can go out. You can meet up with your friends. Everything is good. I just want you to imagine yourself on holiday, and who are you with? Are you by yourself? Are you with your family? Are you with your friends? Just picture yourself on holiday, and wherever you are, it might be the sun is shining, or it might be rainy, but you are not afraid of the rain. You might see a nice river. You might go to that river and sit down and just look at it. Or you might be shopping. You might be going out with your friends. You might be at church. Wherever you are, you're having the best time of your life. Because the world is back to normal. And you will not be reading something, you not be shouting or going to the cinema to watch a film. Whatever you are doing, you're feeling good about it. You're feeling excited. The lockdown is over. You're feeling really good about it. I promise you that the lockdown will be over soon, so we can see each other again and do everything. For me, I have so much to do with my and when the lockdown is over. You know, host a party where all your friends are coming and you're excited. But they will come. We just had to wait. We just had to wait. Hey, might be ready. And when you're ready, come back in the room. And thank you for listening to Relax with Our. Hopefully see you next week. Have a good week.
Hi, we're having some continuing problems with the stream, but the sound does seem to be temporarily at least coming back. So, bear with me 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. None of the buttons are working properly either. I suspect this show may not continue till 4 o'clock, so we'll do our best to give you some edited highlights while it's still working. So, first of all, it's World Water Day. It's a UN day. It takes place every year, and the theme this year is valuing water. So you might think, well, what's that got to do with me and what's it got to do with an arts show? But it's about everybody valuing water in all the different ways they use it within their culture. So, yes, indeed, we can be incredibly grateful that most of us, as long as we can afford our water rates, have got access to free water. And if we can pay our electricity and gas, we can even get free hot water whenever we want to. But water is also different and important in other ways. I do an awful lot of photography and artwork around water. Some of it's abstract, some of it's landscape, some of it's photographing surfers. Robin, you're a multi-gold medal swimming champion, so presumably water's really important to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, both of us as swim coaches, and obviously I still like to get my goggles on every now and again as well. So yeah, I mean, it's an essential part really of our work and leisure lives.
Yeah, diving in without water hurts. Floor's quite hard.
Yes, I think if all of these lockdowns continue much longer, we're going to have synchronized swimming from swim benches. I mean, you've literally got a swim bench behind you for Patton to practice on, haven't you? And that is swimming out of the water.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a treadmill for swimming. It's quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's too big to actually show you because it's like 3.5 meters long. But essentially, it's like a plinth on an angle with pulleys, and you pull yourself up and down. So you're using your arm muscles to pull your body weight up and down. And the way it's designed, you've got handles, so you can make the strokes as if you are as if you were in water. Anyway.
So it sounds like you've been valuing water more than ever now you haven't got it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's like us, we love being by the sea. So yeah, I tend to dream about water an awful lot and dream about swimming and sailing and surfing. But I think it's a Philip Larkin poem, and I wish I could remember it. It's a very short poem, but I recommend it to anybody. It's bound to be available on the internet, and it's about making a religion of water. You know, somebody just holding up a glass of water and looking at the sun strike through it and looking at how pure it is. And just really thinking about it. So, yes, water is a massive subject for art and poetry and filmmaking. So, this week, not just today, have a think about what water means to you. The UN, we will put a link up in our highlights and links page, which is on our website, www.together2012.org.uk, linked from the main Together Unlocked TV page. So every show we put up the highlights and links, we'll put the link up to the UN site, and there are various ways in which you can add in what your thoughts are on what water means to you and why you value water. So so that's World Water Day. Do you think we dare risk moving on to our regular weekly update before the system lets us down again, Robin? Because I know you had a couple of book-related apps. But first, Julie, do you want to talk about the Kindle app? Because lots of people think you've got to have a Kindle to read on Kindle.
No, indeed. When I first got the app, I only had a laptop, a very old laptop as well. So I downloaded it onto my laptop, and I found is it Gutenberg, the archive of older classical type books, covering a massive range, I have to say, and it's free, so I enjoyed that. Then, as I got more and more into it, I realized that I had a choice. I could either spend money on buying books to read, or I could spend money on the Kindle Unlimited subscription, and that's the one I chose. It's $7.99 a month, but it does mean that there's a whole wealth of Kindle books that you can read for free, and they've been a complete joy to me. You know, I got a little notice from the Kindle people that I've been reading for 135 days in a row. So I was quite surprised, really. The time goes so quickly, doesn't it?
Well, it certainly does when you're not going out. Yes, I mean, I have various Kindles. And indeed, I have to say, the Fire Kindle is the cheapest way that you can get online. And indeed, the same lovely Alison Walker, who knitted the hats, has been experimenting, and you can load Microsoft Teams you can actually load onto a Kindle, and that device, if you get it on one of their sale days, is about £35-40. So that's really an aside, because what we were going to say is you don't need one of those in order to read Kindle books. They do a free app. You can download it from their website and indeed from the App Store, and it runs on anything. They've got, you name it, they have a Kindle version. So for about 2 years now, I always read my Kindle books on either my phone or my iPad. I don't use my Kindles at all. So the other thing is you can actually save some money by just running the Kindle app. What Julie was referring to with Project Gutenberg is it's a collection of all the books in the world, well, the significant ones, because it would be impossible otherwise, are out of copyright. And if it's out of copyright, then you can just access it through Project Gutenberg. And the Kindle Unlimited books tend to be contemporary ones. But I mean, I've had a small publisher. I am a small publisher. I've had a small publishing company for over 25 years. And what we do is we put everything onto Kindle Unlimited, because it just means that you still get some money in. So I would really recommend to authors. A lot of authors don't tick it because they want people to buy their books, but actually it makes books much, much more accessible. So, Robin, are you ready to talk about your book apps now?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that was kind of quite a good link, really. So the first one is a link actually from that Patton sent through to me, or she was telling me about it. They are fanatic when it comes to books, and either manga or ordinary books. There is a burgeoning collection of both. But there's an app called Reading List Book Log, and essentially it's rather than it being a library as such. I mean, you could put every book you own in it, and then you put what you've read, how much you've read of it, where you are, and then you can make a wish list out of the books that you want to read or would like to get if you haven't already got them. And I think what's quite good is that one, you can track your own progress because you're putting it in. I mean, it doesn't know where you're at. It's not quite that good, but you can. I mean, and she seems to read about 4 books at the same time, so that's works for them. But if you have the right code, and some books will have barcodes or QR codes on, and the app will recognize those, and then it puts in various bits of information about the book. It is, as far as I can see, an iPad and iPhone app, as is the next one if I get to it today. But it is free to purchase. There are in-app purchases, although I'm not quite sure what more you need than your list of books. But there you go. That's app 1 from me today. Reading List. Do you want the other one as well?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, now this one's a bit of a shot into the wind, I think, because I haven't yet tried it. I'm going to buy it. So it's called CDpedia. So a bit like Wikipedia, nicking the kind of half of the name. It is $18.99 and it's a Mac product. But basically, it's a CD cataloging application. And I was desperately trying to find one that was free or less money, and all I did was found ones that are more. But as a musician and a lover of music for a long time, I have got many CDs. I mean, up in the thousands or 1,500 maybe. I don't know. And I've been collecting CDs, I think, since 1986, something like that, when the first lot came out, and I got Brothers in Arms from Dire Straits, and like when you bought a CD player, it was that new. You got 10 CDs with it. It was that was the deal. So I've kind of got all of those still. And sort of, but so over that time, I've been, lived at home, been a student, lived at home, been a student, blah blah blah, moved house many times, and despite having alphabetized them, or whatever the word actually is, alphabeticalized them,
Put 'em in alphabetical
numerous
order.
times when they've been put in shelves and stuff, they currently aren't.
So what does the app do?
Okay, so the app, again, it can use it can, if it's got the information on the artwork for the CD, it can scan codes. Otherwise, you can put in keywords and stuff. But basically, it reckons it has every CD in the world that's been kind of publicly released anyway, in a database. And then, so what it will then do is, if you get it identifies, it will pull up the track listing, lots of details about the tracks. And interestingly, is if you are on, it says iTunes, but I'm assuming it probably, if you're, also Apple Music would be the same. It tells you if the thing that you're listing is also already in your music library. So if you are inclined to upload all of your material, like we used to do a lot now, not so much these days, because you just kind of go, oh yeah, I'll get that off, and stream it. But when you have got as many CDs as I've got, and you want to go, oh, where's this, and have I got that, and actually, rather than having to sift through a huge bookcase full of CDs that you can't read the titles of, having it in an app it won't help me find it, but at least I know if I got it.
Yeah, I think that sounds fascinating. And I mean, I know these days we spend so much time. As soon as a film comes on, Julie will be on the iPad. Who is that actor? When was this film made? Where did they shoot it? Oh, that looks interesting. I wonder what that is. And it makes everything so much more active, doesn't it? You're actively engaging. And
I was going
to remember much more as a result.
Sorry, I was going to say there. I guess it's by the same people, but there is also something called DVDpedia, I think it was. So And I guess if you go to if you use the link that I've forwarded for the CDpedia, it then kind of gives the sister products anyway. And it might have been Bookpedia, but again, that was a paid for, so I wouldn't, when I've got a free one for reading list, then I don't need the paid for one. But it just, I think it could be very useful. And there's probably an LP, a vinyl version of it as well.
And I can track all 3 of my vinyls that I've got. hard to keep track of them. It's a big collection.
Well, I think that's really comforting. So it's not just a product for boomers, it's also a product for people who are considerably younger. I don't know if we dare risk going back to what we were talking about before the technical side went so spectacularly wrong. Then we'll be moving on to talk about photography and filmmaking. But I was at a meeting on a Friday night of the Association of Festival Organisers. And I thought I'd report back to, and I have said this before, to anybody who is thinking of buying festival tickets this summer. Obviously, there has been a lot of conflicting information. What was so interesting to hear on Friday is that if you listened to the whole of the press conferences and not just what was reported, all of these people like Leeds and Reading organisers actually said, if there is no cancellation insurance, we cannot go ahead. And the government has been saying since March, well, since January, but we've really clarified it in March, there will be no cancellation insurance. So people like me were sitting there saying, well, why have they advertised the tickets then? Because if there's not going to be any cancellation insurance, why are they saying these festivals are going to go ahead? Aha, it turns out that as part of the government's kind of emergency response to COVID, last summer they reduced VAT on ticket prices to a quarter of what it usually is. So it's usually 20% and it's currently 5%. And that runs out in April. But if you sell your tickets before April, you only have to pay 5% VAT. And if your show is then cancelled and held over till next year, when everybody else will be paying at 20% VAT, those festival organisers will only pay 5%. So what they're hoping to do is A, get a lot of cash in now to keep their to keep their cash flow flowing, and B, to make more profit on the tickets next year to cover the extra costs. It has to be said, the Association of Festival Organisers are a different set of festivals, and we do not do that. No, 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 no. So those festivals have genuinely tended to be cancelled unless they're pretty damn sure they can go ahead. But if you'd rather have your money sitting in your bank account than Festival Republic or Live Nations hang on to that cash, the chances are very, very, very high that those festivals are not going to take place till 2022. But the other interesting thing I did at the weekend, which sort of links in because the Association of Festival Organisers is very much folk festival based, is I did an online course with the English Folk Dance and Song Society about calling in the age of COVID. And calling, for anybody who doesn't know, is the kind of traditional country dancing and other kinds of social dance, square dancing, contra, all sorts of dances where somebody calls out the steps to you. It's generally danced in pairs and it's generally called. And I also run a company with Julie called Folk in Motion, which is the UK's only wheelchair folk dance company. So again, I'll put the link up for anybody who's interested. But I thought, obviously, we're not dancing at the moment. It would be really interesting to go along. And it was great. There were 2 people from the States. There were 2 people from Scotland. There were 2 people from Cornwall. It couldn't have happened anywhere but on Zoom. And I often find that they're having these interesting courses. And I'm in East London and they're in Northwest London. And it's like an hour's drive each way. So much, much easier than if somebody's at the other end of the country or in the US. But I still can't get to them. So I think the way that events have extended access geographically, I'm very, very hopeful that they'll also be extended in the future. And that will continue because it's really going to benefit people like me who either don't have the energy to go out or there's nobody available to drive me. But they were talking, we had a really interesting, lengthy discussion around gendered calling, because a lot of these dances started as couples, you know, the man and the woman. So in Folk in Motion, we talk about pairs and people take on a shade of colour. So we have dark colours and light colours. And people talked about how, for example, in Scotland, they're dancing with robins and larks, you know, and then somebody talked about taking country dancing into primary schools, and I think they're ice creams and lollipops. But then somebody else came along, and this is all getting far too complicated for me, but I'm going to go and research it, which is what they call positional calling. So instead of you having to remember, am I a man or a woman? Am I a dark color? Am I a light color? Which is my left? Which is my right? There's a way of calling out instructions that just says all of the people standing on the edge move into the center. So it looks much, much more accessible. So that's what I've taken out of it, you know, something that we can get to grips with in terms of developing the company while we're still not able to dance. Because thanks to Arts Council England, Folk in Motion is in the middle of a national development project, which is mostly, but like as I say, not entirely on hold at the moment. So that was my yes, that's what I would have been talking about half an hour ago if we hadn't had the technical problems that we have had. But shall we move on now to talk about filmmaking and possibly a bit of photography? Robin, we saw a film on Friday that you made, which was sorry, I've got all sorts going on out in the street in terms of all sorts of banging and all sorts of dog barking, which is why we use microphones that don't pick those things up, but obviously our ears do. So on Fridays, we finish with some music usually from Robin and usually live. We had the pleasure of a recording by the full band of your song Black Thursday on Friday, but you were just going to tell us a little bit about how you edited that film together.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was in terms of Friday's version of it. It was there is a longer version of it that I did originally, and that worked really, really easily because what I did was I put the sound in and I took all the pictures. So the pictures that make up the video. So the video is a series of stills, and I literally had the audio track in iMovie, and then just took this block of photos, put it in, and it separated them all to be to all kind of transition the same amount of time.
I think it sets 4 seconds is the like default time that it's on for, I believe.
However, I realized that nearly 7-minute version of the song was just way too long for the show. And so I thought, well, what do I do? And I consulted Josh Bin by much more kind of movie editing, at least reminded me what I had to do. So I had to shorten the soundtrack. Now that was actually, in the end, I thought I needed to chop it and what they call cut it and then take a bit out and do it. And I didn't. All I needed, it's very strange the way that some of these editing products work. Whereas if you imagine your audio is a big long strip with the beginning at the left hand side and the end at the right hand side, what you can do is you can take the right hand side and drag it in towards the beginning, and it doesn't squidge it all up and make it all happen much, much more quickly. What it does do is it just only plays to the point where you've drawn it back to. And that was kind of really good, and that was a discovery in doing it. And then I was able to then add in a fade. So I got the length of it that I wanted first, and then I thought, well, that's okay. I'll do the same with the pictures. I'll just highlight them all and slide them back. Now it didn't work. Didn't work. And so
it does it?
No. So then I had to sort of again, it's still not at all difficult. Whereas, so each picture, if you clicked on each picture in the stretch, each told you how long its duration was going to be shown for, and it just meant that I had to shorten each picture by about a second and a bit. It's very, absolutely simple to do. It's literally just drag it till about how long you want it, kind of go through and hope that as I got towards the end, it made sense that the pictures, so the line of pictures was slowly receding towards where the sound ended. And I got there, and then I added in a new ends shot. So I used, then they have the
Backgrounds and
backgrounds.
titles.
Yes, thank you, Josh. Backgrounds and titles part of iMovies, and I just went to a kind of an end title screen, and just then put in, what the song was and the band members, and then that scrolled up as the song finished. And apart from the fact that it says band Momoebas, which means I need to go in, go in and just edit that little bit of a typo. And now I've done it the once in that way. Actually, it would probably take me 10 minutes to do another one. It's one of those things.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about any app. It's understanding that, yeah, all of us find it difficult at the beginning. And I think, we've got quite a few clubs participants who are still very new to the digital world, and they think, oh, geez, always. But, that's, well, I can't quite work it out, but I was online in 92. I've been around a long time, and I still find the new apps difficult, but it's always about knowing that it's difficult, but it will get easier. You might have to try the same thing 3 times and you'll get a different result on the third. And just being aware that not everything works. I mean, I managed to cut your beautiful fade off on Friday when I brought the credits in. So I thought, oh, I'll pop the fade back in on the editing. And of course, it didn't work. It should have done, put the fade in here, but sometimes it just doesn't. It's not you, it's them. And yeah, back in the 90s when I actually used to teach web design, that's always my thing. I think if you're not very familiar with some of these apps, don't think it's because you're not familiar with them. The more familiar you'll get, the more kind of you'll realize that they just don't always work all of the time, and they don't always have the most intuitive things happening. And as Robin said, sometimes they'll do one thing with the sound, but they'll behave completely differently when it comes onto the vision. And yeah, I think that is just one of those things.
Yeah.
We were filming this morning because it's our Dance on Screen Club, and as I was beginning to say earlier, very fortuitously, when we set the dance club up, we decided that we were going to make films for the films that were made to be seen either on TV or on the cinema or projected on buildings or on your phone or on your computer. And we didn't want to, not everybody felt confident about revealing their faces or, letting people know who it was. So we traditionally move in masks, not the kind of masks that we're now used to wearing, but we've just swapped. So last month we started doing a bit of improvising on Zoom. Today we did a bit of filming just with 3 or 4 of us, and if I edit it successfully, I will show it on next Monday's show. But we were just doing a piece called Say Hello, Wave Goodbye. So we all put hats on and we all put face masks on just to disguise our faces a bit. And we put on, well, again, it's all part of COVID, isn't it? I said, put on the brightest gloves you've got. And then, of course, one person hasn't lived in their own home for a year, hasn't got any gloves there, so she put marigolds on. Somebody else hadn't got any gloves at all because she'd moved during COVID, so she put marigolds on. So it became completely surreal. What we really wanted to do was just experiment with waving at each other. And that whole Zoom thing where you're trying to attract you're at a conference, you're trying to attract the chair's attention, somebody hasn't got their microphone on, you can't take your microphone off, so you're trying to get somebody else to take it. So we were really just messing around literally with waving. What we're going to do next time is we realised that there was no paper mask that couldn't be improved with a bit of felt tip. Now, I wouldn't suggest doing this out and about because it might well impact on how well it keeps the virus out. But But at home, we're all going to play with some paper masks and decorate them. And if anybody at home wants to join in, we would love to see it. If you'd like to join in with the clubs, we'll put a notice up on the highlights and links page after the show. But Noel Guinan is our engagement support worker. He can take your details, and then what happens is you will be sent a Zoom link by Noel probably the day before the club or the Friday before the club. You'll get a reminder text or a reminder phone call to join. Noel will check back if you're having any problems getting onto Zoom, if you're not very familiar with it, for example. Everybody's welcome. Every club is open to all disabled people and whoever you want to bring with you. And we have a social model of disability definition. It's about the barriers and prejudice we experience. We're all perfectly normal. So we include people with learning difficulties, people with physical impairments, people with mental health difficulties, people who are neurodiverse. From absolute beginners to mid-career artists, we believe very strongly that we all have something to teach and we all have something to learn. And that's very much how our club's program runs. We also have our regular weekly art club on a Tuesday and a Friday, and we talk more about that and show the work on a Friday. So if you want to look at the next entry below today's highlights and links, that will have lots more information about the art club and how to join. And on Wednesday we have our phone-based club, which is our pop-up poetry club. Again, this Wednesday, join us at Together Unlocked from 3 to 4, and Julie will be reporting back from the poetry club, and as always we'll be reading the poems. I'm not sure we know what the theme is for this week if you want to join in from home.
Spring,
Ah,
if you remember, because of the change. There was the equinox last weekend, and then the clocks go forward, leap into spring.
so yeah, the clocks go forward on Sunday. So if you'd like to join in from home and you feel brave enough to send us your poems, please do. We would love to hear them. I also just wanted to flag up, because it's on our website, but we don't always perhaps promote it as much as we should. We have a professional development club which I run. That's one-to-one support and occasional group sessions if there are things that everybody wants to talk about. So please feel free to get in touch. Everything we do is entirely free. Thanks very much indeed to Arts Council England, the National Lottery Community Fund, and our sponsors. So if you're feeling you're not sure where to take something, or you had a project, you put it down 12 months ago, you want to restart it, maybe you want to take a project digital, maybe you just want somebody to feed back confidentially about something that you're thinking of doing, then just drop us a line. You can either go through Noel or just send an email to info@together2012.org.uk. Julie, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of filmmaking? We've got another 5 minutes.
I think what you were saying about, well, what you and Robin were saying actually about how frustrating it can be when you think that you've done everything that you should do and there's no obvious way to change it. And I think that reflects a lot on the fact that we very rarely have confidence in what we're doing. And I think the advice that you gave, which is, sort of like it's not you, is absolutely right. And sometimes just take a deep breath, go away, have a cup of tea, come back to it, and try it again, or go online, do a search. And there's very often these little YouTube helpful things that people have put up with probably exactly the same difficulty that you're having.
Yeah, I certainly find Apple have probably got the worst online manuals in the world, far, far worse than Microsoft. So anything that I want to search for, I use Final Cut Pro, which is the kind of professional version of iMovie. Anything you want to know and you search for it, oh no, you have to go online. And of course, if you actually go through the index, it's there. but you just can't find it in a search. As soon as you go online, there's either a bunch of websites where people are going, oh, for goodness sake, how are you supposed to do this? There's YouTube videos showing you how it's supposed to work. But yeah, sometimes it would just simply won't anyway. And I think it's about you just really have to put the time in. I've been giving talks around virtually around the country over the last 6 weeks for LGBT plus History Month. And I had a pre-recorded section. Well, most of it was pre-recorded, and then we came on to live Q&As. It took me 2 weekends. You know, I did an entire recording one day, I did an entire edit the next day. I spent a week realizing it wasn't going to be good enough, but I had it as a safety copy, and then I took a week out, and then I had to do the whole thing again. And it's still, you know, by the time you've sat watching yourself 7 times, you know, you can really realize where it's a bit creaky. But yeah, I think it is about just understanding that it's never going to be really easy, but it isn't
No,
you.
I think Josh was going to say something.
Yeah, please do, Josh.
Yeah, kind of similar to what you've both said in terms of, you know, if you do run into an issue, someone else has probably had that problem. So there probably will be a YouTube video of somebody doing it, or certainly things that are, I'm gonna say more professional, but things like Final Cut, iMovie, Photoshop, those sorts of things. There'll be forums all over the place with people that use it for their job or use it all the time, that will have come across you know, that probably know it better than the people that made it, you know, that will be able to point you in the right direction. But also in terms of what you were saying about watching somebody that knows how to use the program and thinking, oh my God, like, how are they so quick? When you start to learn things like iMovie and Final Cut, there are so many things that are like keyboard shortcuts. So things that when you've never used it before, it's like 5 clicks and you've got to go through and got to open a menu to go to a sub menu to go to a thingy to find an item and then do it, and it takes you like 4 steps. Actually, once you learn to use it, those things that you need all the time, it's like 2 keys on a keyboard, and you learn what, you know. And there'll be all sorts of, you know, crib sheets online and people on YouTube showing you, you know, a 12-year-old in Ohio somewhere that like knows it amazingly will be able to show you all of these things. But actually, once you start to learn those things and become familiar with them, your workflow becomes a lot easier, because you start to realize, oh, I need to do this and here. Or if it goes wrong, you go, oh, it's because I did this instead of this. Sometimes it goes wrong and you've got no idea. It still happens to me and stuff. I'm just like, I have no idea what I've done or why it's gone wrong or how to fix it. You know, you just have to kind of work the problem on those. But certainly, it's just a familiarization thing, as with
And I
anything.
think, yeah, and I think it can, I mean, it's not much fun if you're under pressure, but I think it can be fun at the same time as anxiety inducing and stressful. And part of that is just the kick of learning something new. You know, maybe it's the fact that I'm coming up to 59 soon, but it's so good for your brain. Every time you learn something new, you're getting new neurons, new connections. You know, yeah, you're enlarging your brain, you're enlarging your capacity, and that can make all of the struggles worth it. Even after the first weekend, you're sitting there looking at a video and just thinking, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. You still learned something, and you still practice things, and yeah, some things became even easier, even as some things were still quite difficult. So yeah, I think our message would always be, you can do it, but you've got to give it a try first. And on that very positive note, we've managed to get to 4 o'clock with only one complete stop for technical problems. We very much hope that won't be the case on Wednesday, and there'll be no stops at all, because we will be back with poems from the Pop-Up Poetry Club. We will have a virtual nature walk with assistance dog Merlot. We've got the Clockwork Paralympics. We've got sport and gaming reports from Josh, and much, much more. So thank you for bearing with us today through our technical problems. Thank you, as always, to Be Live for at least continuing through to the end of the programme. Thanks to Arts Council England and National Lottery Community Fund everyone for funding us. And we hope you'll join us again on
See
Wednesday.
you Wednesday. Bye.